Live from Fan Expo Portland.
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 Live from Fan Expo.
These are certified therapy lovers.
Do you like books or movies or TV shows or songs with lyrics? You know, things that were created by writers? Of course you do. Do you like watching people type? I doubt it. Do you like hearing people tell you about how they came up with the things they type? Maybe, and there are lots of shows like that, but this isn't one of them. Do you ever procrastinate? Writers do too. So if you've ever enjoyed a great book or film or TV show or song or poem, and you thought, I'll bet the woman who wrote this epic high fantasy TV series, or the guy who wrote this funny queer sci-fi novel, or the person who writes this punch you in the gut poetry would be really fun to hang out with, and I'd like to hear them confess their bad not writing habits. You're in the right not writing place. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry, stuff like that. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. From Not a Pipe Publishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Welcome, everybody. Today's secret word is going to be
Audioporn.
There we go. Okay.
Welcome, everybody, to Fan Expo Portland and our first live recording of Writers Not Writing. I'm going to try not to trip as I run up on stage.
So why don't we start with you guys introducing yourselves?
Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Davis. I live in Vancouver, Washington, and I, among other things, I research and write books on the paranormal. And my approach, because my degrees are in anthropology, archaeology, and history, is historical context and eyewitnesses. I'm not necessarily judging, is this place really haunted or not? I'm just letting you know what everybody else says. And since this is really topic-wise, what do we do when we're not writing? Among other things, I am lucky enough to participate in some of these reality TV shows, most particularly recently, Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, and no, I did not pick the show name.
Nice.
Thanks, man. My name is Derek M. Koch. I am an author. I just launched the book On the Backburner, which is the first book in a projected 10-book series in the 6-week rotation superhero world or universe, which is something that I've designed and created and been working on for a little while now. So we just launched that, but I'm also a podcaster. I've been producing the Monster Kid Radio podcast for about 8.5 years, I think. I kind of lost track. But it's a weekly show, and we just released episode 608 this past weekend. So I've been doing that for a while as well. YouTube stuff coming. I'm a gamer. Got all sorts of things in the works. So there you go.
Well, thank you both for being on. So as listeners, regular viewers know, we always dress up like this. I mean, we go full on for every episode, and now we're at a Comic-Con. Makes total sense. We would go cosplay. So tell everybody about what you chose to wear. Who's listening? Of course, the YouTube viewers can see it, but for those who are listening to the podcast, what did you choose to wear for your costume today?
Well, my costume, I chose to dress like an out-of-work retired university professor. So I am here wearing my Pendleton wool sweater and open V-neck, a little bit of leather here and there.
The elbow patches, classic.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And everybody knows that, especially the anthropology professors, if you watch your 1950s sci-fi movies, we've got something going in the basement that has to do with claws, fangs, and so on.
Right.
So that is me.
You have an interocitor in the basement somewhere they're working on?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
There you go.
And how about you? How did you come up with this?
Yeah, so I'm flat out decided to go cosplay as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because my new novel is a superhero novel, we're at a comic convention, wanted to go all out with that. So there's a character in my novel named Revenant. He is a cursed Egyptologist. So, you know, it might not look like I'm dressed up like a superhero, but when this character got cursed and everything happened to him, he was wearing his work clothes. So cotton trousers, Norfolk jacket, and this guy is my Koch sword, which is what he wields when he has to deal with the bad guys.
Very cool. And I decided to go, really obscure. So, any of you Tick fans, some folks know the Tick. And I went with if you know your Tick, if you go all the way back to issue number 2, there is a supervillain. So I'm going deep cut here. And there's a supervillain, Chairface Chippendale. And Chairface Chippendale is wearing this, nice vest and slacks and white shirt and has no human head. And so that was a real challenge. How was I going to pull that off in cosplay? So I had to go to IKEA and build this chair instead of a head. So just imagine that I don't have a head here as we're recording. But yes, that's Chairface Chippendale from Tick issue 2. Who then tries to carve his name in the moon, but only gets the CH. It's a disaster. Check out the comic. Ben Edlund's great comic. So this is a show about how we procrastinate, what we're doing when we're not writing. So this last week, what has been something fun you've been up to when you didn't, that was pulling you away from your work?
Oh, yeah, do you want to?
I was so busy that I forgot to pick up the microphone and answer your question. No, okay. I am waiting for, I had some medical issues. As soon as that finishes up, I'm going to unpack all the tools for my knife making endeavors.
Oh, that's cool.
If anyone ever saw the TV show Forged in Fire,
Yeah.
the popularity of the show, what that's actually done is manufacturers are making things like propane forges in greater numbers, so the price has actually gone down. You can outfit a beginner's forge set if you already have the building for about $1,000.
So how long have you been doing that?
Well, my interest in metalworking in junior high, we had shop class. I know that's shop class in junior high and high school doesn't happen.
In junior high, we've got one in our high school, but junior high, no way. They wouldn't let middle schoolers anywhere near that stuff now for liability reasons.
Yeah, and my instructor, if I can say Mr. Reader, he said, "Sure, go ahead." He gave me some wrought iron. And
legal name was Mr. Reader.
Yeah.
How perfect. Now you're an author and actually make
Yeah.
knives. Like Mr. Reader did well.
Yeah, and he let me actually fire up the forge, and I pounded it out, and I still have my little knife. And but my archaeology work included metallurgy, archaeological metalworking, and so I will probably do that.
That is very cool. How about you?
I'm planning a wedding.
Oh yeah.
My fiance and I are getting married in April.
Congratulations. That's cool.
Thank you. Up until recently, we did not have a location secured. So we've been dealing with that and dealing with people saying they want us to do the wedding there. And when we ask for a price, well, you should come out and check the place out first. It's like, I appreciate that. But the place that I was looking at was a movie theater, and I know what a movie theater looks like. I've been to your movie theater, so I know what's there. Just give me a number. It was frustrating, but we finally got a place landed. It's going to be happening at one of my favorite, it is a movie theater, but one of my favorite movie theaters in Oregon. And I can't wait for that. But it's a lot of work, to get ready for that. My fiance's doing a lot of it. Her family's helping out, but yeah, that's what I'm planning right now is an April wedding. So that's what's been taking up most of my time when I'm not doing the day job that I'd like to not think about. So
Yes, I am in a similar boat. I'm going to steal notes from you because I'm getting married summer of 2024.
Congratulations.
Because we have not figured out a place. I mean, the same thing. Where are we going to do this thing? And so trying to find a place we can afford and that can. We actually got to the point at one point in the conversations where we were thinking we could do 3 weddings. Like we could have one in Cleveland with my family and one in the Bay Area and one. This is insanity. We are going to have one service. If people can make it, they can make it. And now we've got to figure out where that place is. So.
What we're doing is we're going to set up a live stream somewhere because we do have people that
Oh.
are not going to be able to make it. We
That's
know
a
this
good
ahead of
idea.
time, so we're going to try to set up a live stream. If it's not a live stream, we're going to record it and put it on YouTube or something, because we do have family members who will not be able to travel for COVID reasons or any other, it's expensive.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we did kind of pop it on them. It's in less than 2 months and we finally got a place lined up. So that is one thing what we're going to do is set up that as an option for some folks.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, are either of you local to the Portland, Vancouver area?
I'm in Independence, which is outside of Salem.
Okay.
Vancouver.
Well, the reason I ask, and I know you've got your place already set up, but my wedding reception was at a place called the Covington House.
Oh, okay.
And it is the oldest building in Vancouver, dating to the 1840s.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think it's like $250 for the day.
I really like that price, because let me tell you, some of the places, the prices are obscene.
Yeah, it's a log cabin dating the 1840s. It's been moved to its current location, but
Yeah, that is very cool. So, when we're not planning weddings, what about in the news? What has been grabbing your attention in the news this week that's been pulling you away from your work?
Okay, I'll go this one. Okay.
I don't watch the news.
Yeah, that might be wise.
So I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, I'm into all sorts of nerdy type stuff, and I do watch some news YouTube channels and things like that, like Philip DeFranco or whatever, but the thing that's been really catching my attention in the world of pop culture news and geek news is this disaster of a way that Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast handled all their open game license and nonsense. I'm an old school Dungeons and Dragons player. And my creative writing teacher taught me in high school, even though he made me promise never to tell anybody that because it would get him in a lot of trouble. Because Satanic Panic was real in 1980s.
Oh yeah, I remember.
The 1990s. But I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons forever, and I've been a gamer just for so long, and it's influenced my writing.
Right? Oh yeah.
But Wizards of the Coast is the publisher of Dungeons and Dragons, and they had this amazing thing called the Open Game License that they introduced during their third edition of the game, which allowed independent publishers to create quote-unquote official material that was compatible with Dungeons and Dragons, and it allowed a lot of companies and creators to make a living designing gaming material. When they released their fourth edition, they changed things a little bit. Fourth edition had some issues. They did bring the Open Game License back with fifth edition, and now that they're updating to a new edition they're calling 1D&D, there was a leak that they claim was a draft, but I don't believe them, that basically would have put the kibosh on most of that.
Oh my gosh, it would have been a disaster.
It was a mess, and it really would have ruined a lot of creators' careers.
Yeah.
And I know that when they went from third edition to fourth edition, it did create some alternative role-playing game companies like Paizo Publishing and all that, and I think they're terrified of that happening again, because it does cut into their market share.
Sure, but my understanding is this is, and some of this is supposition on my part. This was, an attorney said, you realize you could make a lot more money if you shut everyone out of the business.
It's that.
They had a draft, and then they didn't think through the ramifications. And so this would have made it so that if you had a company that made dice, you were nervous. If you had a company that recorded a podcast, there was a D&D podcast, you were nervous.
YouTube,
Amazon and YouTube and some of those, even Amazon and Netflix pulled back on funding for projects in the future because they were going, well, we just don't know. And so it scared, even though it wasn't official, it scared a lot of people in the industry who just went, no way, we're out of this. This is dangerous. And so, people lost their jobs. It was really scary. It was handled really poorly.
Wizards of the Coast is owned by Hasbro. And Hasbro did not do well during the Christmas season. They had to lay a bunch of people off afterwards because they did not sell what they needed to sell. But Wizards of the Coast for a long time, especially through the pandemic, was the one part of Hasbro that made money for them. It just became huge. And I think they got kind of greedy, and they're like, if we can make that much money on this, let's see how we can monetize the rest of it. And then they bring in people who work for gaming companies, and who aren't gamers. They're people that do mobile gaming that everything is monetized on. And Yeah, it's a mess.
That's what I hear you saying is that a multinational corporation doesn't care.
Right.
Got a little greedy. Yes. Can you believe a corporation got a little greedy?
No.
Yeah.
No.
And didn't think things through. I mean, we've never had a corporation not think through the long-term ramifications of their choices before. So this was really shocking in that way.
You know, on the one hand, it's a company, they've got to make money. They've got to protect their property. They've got to produce profits for their shareholders. So I get that. But I think what it really did, and this is my takeaway as an independent creator myself, who does want to dabble in doing some gaming material down the line, and will later this year, it kind of shows that, like podcasters as well, or YouTubers, or even writers, not to put all your eggs in one basket. Because if you put everything on the fact that you can do an open game and be successful at it, chances are not that that's not going to happen, because Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro can, at any time, change the rules. Now, they put their open game license into the Creative Commons, so it's out of their hands now for this edition.
Right.
I do not trust for a minute that their approach to, the new edition's going to be backwards compatible, is going to stay the same after this debacle.
Yeah.
I'm 100% sure we're not going to hear the backwards compatible talk anymore because of what happened.
Well, and I wonder if the fact that there's a new film coming out made them say, in order to get the Hasbro licensing deal, we don't want to be competing, and this other open license may interfere with that, and we don't want Sony to then, I think it was Sony who's doing the film, to say, then, we want to merch, because anybody can make D&D stuff, and it'll cut into the merch department, and so they went, okay, well, let's lock it all down.
You say that, but I also wonder if the studio's involvement might have pressured them to fix things the way they did, because people were canceling their D&D Beyond account, and it really hurt them financially. Yeah. Despite them saying, well, it didn't really no, you lost a ton of money doing this. And I'm wondering if the studios are like, dude, we're about to put millions of dollars into marketing this movie for you. What are you doing?
You're making your core audience angry at the worst time. Well, I struggle with this myself. One of my novels is Corporate High School. The working title was Walmart High School, and it came about when Walmart announced that they were getting into the charter school movement. Sitting around with a bunch of other educator, union activists, folks, and we were all talking about that, and we were going, what would a Walmart school look like? And at first we were laughing, worst education every day. And then we went, this is really terrifying. And so that's where this dystopia came from. And then I was talking to a woman who'd actually been an attorney for Walmart, and she said, you can totally do this. Your titles you can't copyright a title, you can put this out here. Walmart will sue you. They will keep that in court for 30 years. They will bankrupt you in legal expenses, and you will eventually win. And the book will be put out there, but 30 years from now. So decide, do you want to go to war with Walmart? And I went, no, okay, we'll call it Corporate High School. So sometimes these firms, they've got an army of lawyers, and they can just tie you up. And I wonder if this was a case where there were, too many hands in the kitchen, and nobody said, this is really bad for our core audience. This might look good on paper, but this is a really bad idea.
That's been their stance now. They've got the executive director of Dungeons and Dragons doing the rounds, hitting all the YouTube channels and interviews and all that, and he's pretty much said, we didn't have enough of us, the designers and gamers, in the room when these decisions were being made. Now, I'm sure the guy was prepped for months, or maybe at least weeks.
Well, but that was part of the problem, was it was too late. They took way too long to respond.
And now they've kind of overcorrected with some of the stuff they put into the Creative Commons, and I don't think they were paying enough attention there either, because now things that were never open game seeped into the Creative Commons license, like Strahd from Ravenloft. That's a trademark that they own, but that name is now in the open game.
Oh, it's
Beholders are now mentioned as in the open game. Now the stats are not, but you can now create third-party material referencing Strahd, referencing Beholders. I'm waiting for the glut of Strahd's memoirs to come out, or magic items or whatever, based on Beholders or whatever. And shoot, I should be writing this stuff.
It's hard to even think about writing fantasy and saying, I need to stay away from all the things I've ever come across in D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at one point, in one version of it was like, we own elves and orcs, and it's like, no, you don't.
You can't own elves, no.
No.
That's slavery, and it's wrong.
I didn't think once what's actually happening on my end, it really news as big as what you're talking about. But when you're thinking about this, in entertainment especially, right now, if anybody does watch any of these Travel Channel shows, Discovery Channel shows, you notice there aren't any new episodes. And some of that is because Discovery Channel is doing some kind of a discussion of merge with some elements of other TV
Is that
stations.
HBO? Are they I don't think who their subsidiary of?
And thereby hangs, this internals.
Yeah.
And so, in particular, Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, right? But the paranormal TV shows, in that, like the Dead Files, a lot of these that are airing on the Travel Channel, what's happening is, because of the waiting on the merger and the financials, last year was a bad year for these entertainment shows as well. They're like seeking financial retrenchment, i.e. not spending any money.
Yeah.
And they're also looking at these mergers, which means not spending any money. And so a lot of shows that would usually get renewed by now and they'd be announcing it aren't. And internally, Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, season 1, 8 episodes. It's a trial season.
Right.
The fan site for Alaskan Killer Bigfoot, just now I think they passed 16 or 17,000 fans on Facebook for a show that only has 8 episodes.
Right.
And the IMDB rating is very, very high. Behind the scenes, I worked and volunteered doing some promotional work and setting up podcasts. I don't know how we missed you.
I know. Yeah, right? Yeah, that would have been, I would have been taking away from, we're not looking for Bigfoot right now. We're talking about how we procrastinate from the task of finding Bigfoot. So that would have been, I don't know if that would have helped.
Yeah, but as far as the rest of the year, we were setting up podcasts, and the metrics that IMDb does to say this is successful, this is not. They don't actually release what the metrics are, but you get an idea.
Right.
Anyway, that show numbers actually pass 6 in 6 out of 10, and that's actually considered tremendously successful.
Oh yeah, that's a hit.
And yet there we are. Maybe I'll flash this as, this is partly why I'm procrastinating and not being
Everyone sounds like a lot of people on that show right now are twiddling their thumbs, waiting.
Yeah.
Are we going to have a second season?
Yeah. And so I did want to bring this up because people are watching this for a reason. This is associated with it. So I thank you for talking about D&D. It's like, this is partly why this stuff isn't happening.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and you were talking about how those metrics, IMDb doesn't release the metrics. This is something we run into as authors all the time. Almost no one watching the show knows what the formula is that Amazon uses to come up with its ratings, its numbers, and that is a real challenge. The system by which they determine the algorithm, what's going to be advertised, and that's intentional on their part because they don't want it to be gamed. As soon as anybody finds out, oh, this is how you boost your likelihood of being viewed. Is it you need to fill a warehouse the day before your book comes out with a bunch of your books? People did that. That was how a lot of folks said, oh look, I'm an instant bestseller. Yeah, because you filled a warehouse because they figured out that was a way to do it. So they're constantly changing that algorithm, but it creates this mystery where we don't know when. And some people actually come to me, when does it help you most for me to buy your book? No one knows. Is it the day after the launch date? Is it pre-order? And so we're all at the, living, in terror of the giant corporations which get to decide our fate. And that's just one of those things as a writer that's outside of your control. So.
Yeah, I would suggest, I'll hand you the mic in a minute.
No. But fascinating.
Yeah, if anyone does like a particular show that's on, I'm talking mostly that kind of entertainment instead of books, sending messages or emails to the studio website saying I really like this, statistically those really don't count. You need to actually go to where the studios pay attention. That's why I keep on harping IMDb. And you need to actually do ratings with written comments if you like a show. And you know what, if you don't like a show too, I like it, I don't like it, and that's the beginning. Even though how they you know, how they roll this stuff up and put it in a container and shake the container and see what breaks and comes out.
Well, and that's true for us. I mean, you know, as authors as well. You know, even if you don't like Amazon as a company and the way that they behave and the way that they treat their writers, and some of their deals are, I think, clearly should be illegal and monopolistic practices. It matters. Like if you get, you know, the ratings there, and so if you want to support an author that you like, the Amazon rating and Goodreads, owned by Amazon, those make a huge difference to writers, even if you bought it somewhere else. Yes, by all means, if you bought it at Powell's here in Portland, rate it on Powell's, that's wonderful. And also copy and paste that to Amazon. That'd be very nice to that author. It makes a big difference. But we're almost into writing process, which is forbidden territory. We don't do that on this show. We got into marketing.
This week's ad is for ads. More specifically, advertisers. Even more specifically, people who want to advertise something on our show. Are you an author struggling to let readers know about your book? Do you have a product that would appeal to the kind of person who also likes to listen to writers talk about procrastinating? Do you like ads filled with questions? No? Well, then give us a better one by going to the homepage for this show and clicking the link on the bottom about advertising here. We're now on our 11th episode. We have over 500 downloads. That's not a lot, but the graphs are going in the right direction, and our rates are very low. So why the heck not?
Getting away from marketing, when you've been daydreaming this last week, what has been, or not necessarily this last week, but what have you been daydreaming about that's either getting you away from your writing or sometimes potentially leading you on a path that could be towards some future writing? So what daydreaming have you been up to?
Well, it's all writing related. This is
Right.
I'm a creator. I can't turn it off.
Right.
And I'm always picking up new things. You know, whether it's podcasting or YouTubing or Twitch streaming or whatever. One thing that I'm going to be doing with my superhero universe that I'm launching with this book is we're going to be doing some non-novel storytelling. I don't want to call it metafiction. That kind of implies certain things, but. The book is going to be a 10-book series, but later this year, after the wedding, we're going to be launching at least a 6-episode live play role-play game on Twitch in this universe using a version of the old TSR Marvel Superheroes role-playing game.
Yeah.
Because that's what that was my first role-playing game.
It's a good system.
It's a great system. There's a retro clone of it out there now that is part of the open game license, so we're going to use that. More than likely. But yeah, I've been daydreaming about that and the kind of games I'm going to run for that. I'm a DM, GM, judge, animator, game master, whatever you want to, crit master, I don't know, whatever. But I run all the games, so I've been daydreaming about all that stuff. And then apparently these words started falling out of my mouth yesterday or the day before that I'm going to do an audio drama set in this world as well. So I'm voicing that and willing that into existence.
Yes, exactly. But you're talking audio drama with other voice actors.
Yeah, full cast.
Full cast.
I love audio. I listen to podcasts all the time.
Yeah.
I love audio dramas, and I've done some voice acting for some of them, like Eric Busby's Myron stuff and things like that, darker projects, and Julie McGowan's 19 Nocturne Boulevard over the years. It's been a long time since I've done actually voice acting. I'm really more of I want to control it. I'm a control freak. I want to edit my stuff. So I'm going to write an audio drama set in this world, probably with the characters that were not planned to be in the novel, because to me, the big part of the reason why I'm doing this whole comic superhero novel thing anyway is because I want to create this superhero universe that feels full and lived in. And I'll talk more about that on my Superhero Pros presentation at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what I'm daydreaming about. Is the gaming and the future stories that I hadn't really counted on until, like I said, the words kind of fell out of my mouth. It's like, oh, I guess I am doing that now. So
yeah.
So.
How about you? What have you been daydreaming about?
That's cool. A couple things, but I do have some friends who've done voice work.
Nice.
If you actually launched into porn, I have a couple friends who do audio books of naughtiness.
Really?
I do.
So it's audio erotica? Oh gosh. Yes.
I used to edit freelance for a guy who was writing erotic fantasy you can only listen to elves and nymphs getting that excited for that long before you realize there's no amount of money that will pay you to be sane.
Yeah, I can't get this out of my brain.
I will have you know, I never voiced any of that.
So you say, no one will know. No. You've done that before?
I've voice acted for erotic.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's so great.
The start of my career, sadly, in voice acting started out.
Sadly, there's no shame in that.
I'm not shaming you. It's not for me, but you know, if
Taught me how to get loud good.
There you go.
And work is work.
Work is work. It did pay. So
Yeah.
There you go.
It's like working your vocal cords.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Me.
That's so great.
That's awesome though.
Thank you for sharing. Actually, I kind of waver a couple times on a couple things. Because of my background in archaeology, I've been toying with the idea of actually doing replica bronze casting and silver casting, yeah. And I also, it's so funny, I get a lot of satisfaction but no money from doing history work. And I am a member of a military history 501c3, the Vancouver Barracks Military Association, vbma.us online, and we put on talks and events in the Vancouver, Washington area. So over the course of this week, I am mentally going through my dad's 8mm home movies from the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
Oh.
He was stationed at the Vancouver Barracks. After he passed on, I digitized all of his video, and I'm mentally trying to figure out what am I going to cut to do as a presentation.
Yeah, that will be cool.
Yeah, and so it's, of course, that's something you do in your mind. They're all these 3-inch rolls, right, of reels of film, which are 4 minutes long, and some of them are actually taped together. So I've got to review them before I can cut.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interspersed with pictures of me at the age of 1 in like a little wading pool, pushing down and letting the water run out. You can see like, wow, that's interesting.
Yes, Archimedes. How's this bathtub function?
Eureka!
Yes.
That's awesome.
I had an interesting one this last week. I was listening to a podcast about a story that we've all heard and heard incorrectly. How many of you have heard that story that the guy who invented the Segway drove off a cliff and died while riding a Segway, right? We've all heard this urban legend. Apparently it is inaccurate. It's close enough to true that it is the story. It was spread all over the place. The inventor of the Segway did not drive off a cliff and die while riding a Segway. What actually happened is the guy who invented the Segway overhyped it like crazy, and it wasn't all his fault. He was really, really concerned that another company would come in and steal the tech, and so he created all this mystery by trying to protect his technology, and then people went nuts going, what is this thing that's going to come out? And they were saying this is going to revolutionize everything. You're going to have to change the way you build cities because everybody's going to be using this thing, but nobody knows what it is. And people got very, very excited. And so he got a ton of investors and he spent a ton of money, and when he had to actually release the product, the price point then was $8,000. And people went, $8,000 for something most people can do just fine without your $8,000 device, and it did not work. Meanwhile, a guy who lived less than 200 miles away in England, in a small town where the city was eroding into the sea, owned a sand company, and he invented a better way to bag sand so that instead of 10 soldiers taking an entire day to build a couple of sandbags, this was, or build a wall. Now you could have 2 people build a wall in a day, in a matter of hours. Well, he was doing this in order to preserve his small town in England, but that ended up being really handy in Afghanistan when you need to protect a barracks from an explosion. He ended up making millions and millions and millions of dollars and just had FU money. Like, he was like, whatever, I can buy whatever I want. Spent a lot of it employing the people of his town who had been his previous co-workers when he'd been a coal miner, and that industry had gone out. Apparently was just a lovely man, really did a lot for his community, but he also was this guy who was a previous, a coal miner who suddenly was incredibly rich. So he was, to some extent, when he wasn't taking care of his community, was throwing his money around on things and went, Oh, a Segway company. Okay, why not? I'll buy the Segway company. Bought the Segway company, was on his off-road Segway, somebody was walking their dog, and he was the one who fell off the cliff. And so we hear the story with this kind of schadenfreude of ha ha ha, but there's actually a kind of interesting story underneath of a guy who came up with something that turned out to be really, really useful. It was the bags of sand, not the Segway. And so I've been thinking about this. I was on a panel about tech in science fiction, and so I've been thinking about what are those things that we can't imagine currently that will be incredibly useful, but because they haven't been invented yet, we can't think of the need, versus those things in science fiction where we think, well, I can already imagine how this thing could be better. So how will our lives be changed by the thing that we just can't comprehend yet? So that's got me thinking about, and of course, if I were a futurist, if I could invent that product, I wouldn't be a science fiction author, I would be an investor or a billionaire, right? I'm just kind of thinking, for the sake of story, like what would be that tech that hasn't come out yet because it seems so mundane. It's just a better way to bag sand, and it can change people's lives.
Make sure that you add a Chinese spy balloon to this story.
Right. Again, yeah. But that's actually a really good example. We think of spy tech. We don't think balloons, right? Oh, it's the Hindenburg, right? But somebody thought of it. Somebody went, actually, this is really practical. We can collect a lot of information from the air, not with a satellite. This is far less expensive. Let's just throw some balloons up there. They'll cause all kinds of chaos. They'll scare people like crazy. And it's just a balloon. I bet you that thing cost a lot less than, a spy plane.
It was actually a Japanese in World War II.
Who started balloon aerial reconnaissance?
No, actually it was a whole plan to set the Pacific Northwest forests on fire.
Oh, I did. I have heard of that.
The book series is called Silent Siege, and they had ships with all these hydrogen-filled balloons and incendiary baskets, and they understood the air currents.
Right.
And so they sent them aloft, and they found the remains of some in like the Great Lakes area.
Wow.
But only didn't do it to the forest, but it killed parts of one family that were on a post-church Sunday outing.
Wow.
It was stuck in a tree, and they started trying to pick at it, and they set it on.
Wow. There are gun batteries you can see along the Pacific coast that were, let's shoot these things down, or let's shoot at the ships if they come close enough. Have you ever visited any of those? It's wild.
Fort Stevens.
Yeah. So where can folks find you to find your work? Other than coming to Fan Expo, and going to our author alley.
And do not drive to my house, as happened to me once.
Yes. Find you online, not find you in person. That would be creepy.
My new website, I'm transitioning to a WordPress website. This is for me the great thing about coming to this is getting ideas from you people who are more successful and smarter than me. My new website is all spelled out one word: jeffdavisghostguy.com. And my old website is ghostsandcritters.com, and you can see 20 years of clunky old code.
Well, when you get the new WordPress site up, you just link to the old one as a sub-page. It'll all still be there.
Yeah.
So Jeff Davis Ghost Guy.
And that's how you can find me.
Yeah.
You can find me at Jeff's house. No, just
2 o'clock in the morning.
I got a couple of different websites for my writing, though, specifically. My main writing site is monsterkidwriter.com. You can find all of my writing stuff there, and just in general, because I write more than just the superhero stuff. If you're interested in the new superhero series, 6weekrotation.com is where you're going to want to go for that. And that's the number 6 week rotation. So you can find me there for the Solemn Judgment series, the upcoming Nixon Protocol series, and the Professional series, and then the Magical Book 10 that doesn't have a name yet, but it's going to be a big crossover. It's going to be awesome. And if you're interested in hearing me talk about, classic monster movies, I have a podcast at Monster Kid Radio at monsterkidradio.net. You can find that podcast on iTunes. Is iTunes still a thing? Everywhere.
Oh yeah, iTunes is still the thing for podcasts. I was surprised to learn that myself.
Yeah, I don't know.
Many of you are listening to this on iTunes right now.
You can find Monster Kid Radio on all the podcast platforms, but if you can't, go to monsterkidradio.net, or we even put our episodes on YouTube. It's an audio show, but you can still watch them on YouTube as well. So that's there as well.
Yeah, excellent. So, as our sign-off, I've struggled to figure out what is the best sign-off for the show. So we are going to give you 4 pieces of advice for this week. So each of you, what is your piece of either writer or procrastinator advice for the viewers?
Yeah. No pressure. No pressure at all.
Yeah, this wasn't in the synopsis.
That's true.
What kind of procrastination were you doing? My best advice is, especially to people who want to be writers, is everybody has writer's block. Don't feel guilty about it. And it's a painful process, all elements of it, but I would not do anything different, so stick with it.
Okay, so maybe you can consider this procrastination because it's something you're doing when you're not writing, but it will help your writing. Read everything. Yes, I've got a superhero novel, and I read a lot of superhero fiction. But like I was saying in a panel with you the other day, Ben, one of my absolute favorite things to read is pulpy westerns. Yeah. I love a good western, and I love that stuff so much. I haven't written one yet, but you know, I take lessons from everything that I read. I can't help but absorb tips and tricks and how characterization works and pacing and all this other stuff from everything, fiction and nonfiction. Don't just stick to your genre or your lane. Read everything. There's so many great stories and great things to learn out there between the pages of so many books.
And our last 2, in writing, as in life, the spaces between the words are essential for it to have meaning. So take some space. And then the last thing is, no matter how much you procrastinate, we're still proud of you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
And that was it. My time.